Shalom and good day all, this is Tehillim29 back again for another indie comic review, and in this indie comic review I'll be covering Street Fighter 6 issue 3, followed by TMNT versus Street Fighter. So I'll now get things organized for the first one that I'll be covering. So for the first one that I'll be covering will be Street Fighter 6 issue 3. And starting off with first things first, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that is happening inside with the story? Not really a lot at all, but overall I did enjoy its design and how it actually set up some of the characters on the page, to which I gave it a 7 out of 10. Now it's time to move into the internal art as well as some of the things that are happening with the characters inside of the story. So as the story begins, we have Ken Masters, who ends up waking up in a certain place in Nashville and will eventually be taken into custody by Johan Petrovich, who is works as the head of Amnesia. Jumping into the middle of the story, we end up encountering a scene to which Johan Petrovich sort of lays up a bit of a ransom before him, and yes, he has Ken Masters' son, who is Mal Masters. And last but not least, we have Luke Sullivan working on the scene as he managed to foil one of the characters connected to Johan Petrovich, and working out where some bomb locations are to which he has to stop Amnesia from blowing up. So for the internal art, I give it a 7.5 out of 10. I must say, I reckon this would probably make for a really good short animated video around this particular story, which is centered around Street Fighter 6, and it would be even fantastic to see it show up on the actual Street Fighter channel. So moving into the next thing, and that is the racing for the story. And first things first, did anything time-wise show up within the story? Sure enough, there was, to which there was a bit of a countdown, to which there was a bit of an ultimatum put in front of Ken Masters with Johan Petrovich, who has taken his son captive and trying to get him to do his bidding. Whilst on top of that, Johan Petrovich almost reminds me of a Klaus Schwab. Just saying. You eat the bugs, including his language. Okay, moving into next thing, we have Nashville. The next thing, which is the location, which this is still playing out in Nashville. The topic of the arena comes up, but we do get some hidden locations to which we get no idea whereabouts they are in Nashville. And I suspect maybe they are connected to the Amnesia headquarters. The cast of characters consisting of Ken Masters, Luke Sullivan, Johan Petrovich, and last but not least, Mal Masters. For the overall story rating in this, I give it a 7.5 out of 10. I'm really looking forward to the next issue and how the issue will end, and I must say, I think I wouldn't mind getting the trade paperback to this when it comes out. And I'm wondering if there might maybe be a second part to this story. Even though maybe it might play out in the video game, or maybe in another Street Fighter 6 run. So, now it's time to move on to the TMNT Street Fighter issue 1 crossover. And moving into first things first, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that is happening inside with the story? In some essence it does, to which I give a 7 out of 10. Now it's time to move into the internal art, as well as some of the things that are happening story-wise. So, jumping into the beginning of the story, we have a bit of a tournament or a ring fight between one of the turtles as well as one of the Street Fighters, and we get to see Guile go up against I must admit, two hot-headed characters going up against each other. So we have Guile going up against Raphael. Jenica just sits there and does fucking nothing. She's a wasted character, and I must admit, kill her off. I mean it, kill her off in this. It would make the story better, and it would make the stakes higher. Alright, as we move towards the middle of the story, we also have Michelangelo going up against Chun-Li. And I must admit, even though we're seeing a lot of like actual fighting between the opponents, we aren't really seeing a lot of special moves from mainly the Street Fighter characters, because when people see, say, the Street Fighter characters compared to the TMNT characters, there are certain things that stand out with certain characters. Like, if it's a Street Fighter character, you know that Chun-Li has her Kikoken, which is sort of like a fireball type move. Even Guile has somewhat a fireball type move. Of course, Ken and Ryu have their range type moves, and as well as their close-up attacks, which we really don't get to see a lot of in the first issue. And I think it would have actually improved the story rating for this particular story when I get to it. But who knows, maybe they might bring that into the second issue, and then it will sort of like help let the Turtles know that the stakes are a little bit higher than what they're used to in their particular story. And last but not least, we move towards the end, to which they sort of like end their bouts between each other. And we get to see M. Bison here, as well as Baxter Stockman. So for the internal art, I give it a 7 out of 10. Now it's time to move into the area of the story rating. So first things first, do we get anything in relation to time? Not really at all. Though I think it really would have sort of like helped encapsulate the idea of, say, the Turtles being in a bit of a timed tournament, even at timed events at certain points in the story. And I'd even point out that I think that would also increase the story rating if that was here. But seeing it wasn't, you'll find out when we get to the actual story rating. Next is basically the tournament arena, or the tournament ring. But we never really get any indication as to where it's taking place. Again, if you cannot put out the clear location for a story, why are you bloody putting out this story? Right? We, the reader, need this content. And it's only that content that will either make your story more readable for others who might be interested in this product, or more of an idea to give the story a deep thumbs down, and no one gets to pick up the trade of this particular run. And I mean nobody. And not even pick up the rest of the comics to the run. Alright. One thing it did sort of get here was the cast of characters. Of course, fake Turtle, Jenica. Please kill her off in this run. That would be so fantastic. We had Guile, we had Bison, we had Raphael, we had Michelangelo, we had Leonardo. We had Baxter. Didn't actually end up seeing Splinter there, though it would have been nice to see the character, or Baxter Stockman. We had Chun-Li, we had Ken, Ryu. And last but not least, Donatello. For the overall story rating, I give this a 6.5 out of 10. Until then, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day.